Hello and welcome to this session on helping children and young people to sleep better, brought to you by A Better Medway. My name's Sarah Richards and I work in the child health team at Medway Public Health. Throughout this session we'll be focusing on the sleeping habits of teenagers in particular because of the changes that they go through at this age that can have an impact on their sleep. Sleep is important to physical and mental health, especially during adolescence. So how much sleep do we need? Teenagers typically require between 8 and 10 hours of sleep per night. So first of all, what I'd like you to do is thinking about your teenager or young person in your house. Have a think back to last night and ask yourself the following questions. And if you've got a pen and paper to hand, it might be useful to make a few notes that you can reflect back on throughout the session, because asking ourselves these questions can help us to reflect on the type of sleep that we have, the quality of the sleep, the habits that we have before we go to sleep, and what impacts they may be having on how long we're able to stay asleep and how we feel the next day. So think about what time your teenager went to bed, what time they actually fell asleep, what time did they wake up this morning, and then what time did they actually get out of bed? Were they up in the night at all, and if so, how many times? What activities did they do in the hour before they went to bed? And you can also ask yourself, what did their day look like? Did they do any exercise? Did they eat well? What routines did they have? Did they have homeschool perhaps, or social connections with friends? And then the last question is, what are their energy levels looking like today? So if it's a 5, they're full of energy, and if it's a 1, they're perhaps feeling a little bit sluggish, maybe a little bit irritable, and their energy levels are quite low. So next, what we need to do is just have a little bit of an understanding about the sleep-wake cycle, or the circadian rhythm. And this is important because it helps us to understand the habits that we form throughout the day, and the things that can impact on our ability to fall asleep, stay asleep, and to our levels of alertness. So the circadian rhythm is the daily pattern, the 24-hour cycle that determines when it's time to sleep and when it's time to be awake. And that is affected by levels of light in the air and levels of darkness. Now, there are 2 chemicals particularly involved in the sleep-wake cycle. The first is adenosine, which gradually builds right the way throughout the day and tends to peak around about 9 or 10 o'clock at night, when eventually we drift off to sleep. And that once those levels peak, they then start to go back down again as you sleep, and that triggers this cycle again. What also happens is we have this chemical that you might be more familiar with called melatonin, which is another hormone that helps to regulate your circadian rhythm. Now, these levels begin to rise a little bit later in the afternoon, and they peak in the early hours of the morning as your body prepares to wake. So as I said, sleep is affected by levels of lightness and darkness. So if you turn on too many bright lights, particularly blue lights from cell phones and iPads and iPhones and the TV and things like that, that can interfere with melatonin production, and that makes it harder for us to fall asleep. The same can be said by actually taking in some sunshine. So when you wake in the morning, if you can get outside and get some fresh air and some sunlight on your face quite soon after you wake, that can help to increase levels of alertness. So even if your teenager's feeling, they're awake, but they're lying in bed refusing to get up, just pulling the curtains open and letting some natural light in will help them to feel much more alert, much more quickly. Okay, so why was that important? Why was it important for me to talk to you about that? Well, we saw the pattern of the way that the chemicals are released into our bodies throughout the day, and we saw the melatonin production. Melatonin is actually released a little bit later in teenagers, so there's a real reason why we sometimes might be getting into those battles with them late at night. You're telling them that it's time that they need to be thinking about going to sleep, getting into bed, and they're just not tired, they're not ready for sleep because they haven't had those sleepy cues cues just yet, and that's a change that happens in them at this particular age. They're wanting to fall asleep later than they did as children and later than us as adults. So it's not them being difficult, it's not them wanting to stay up. That might be a factor as well. They're wanting to stay up and continue their video games or talking to their friends on social media, but actually they're just not getting those sleepy cues, and that can present a challenge because of course, they still need to set an alarm clock probably for the next day when they need to be on the bus or they need to be in the car with you on the way to school when we're not in this lockdown situation. So how do they get their 9 hours of sleep if they need to be up by a certain time? So we need to try as best as possible to work out what time they need to be up and then work backwards to try and work out what time bedtime needs to be. Okay. And it's challenging because the day feels longer for them. When they wake up at 8 AM, it feels more like 6 AM. And they haven't really developed that mechanism yet for registering fatigue. So they just don't, when we're asking them to go to sleep at night, they just don't realise how tired they are. Their brains are maturing during puberty and they're staying awake for much longer. But quite ironically, they actually need a lot of sleep to process all this reorganisation and change that's going on in the brain during this stage of adolescent development. So what are the signs of sleep problems? You might recognise these in your teenager or even in yourselves. So if they're finding it difficult to actually fall asleep, they might be laying in bed for long periods of time before drifting off to sleep. Perhaps they're waking up several times throughout the night or waking up early and then unable to get back to sleep. They might be feeling down or irritable. They may have difficulty concentrating on their studies or perhaps they feel just wake up feeling like they haven't had a good night's sleep. Sometimes daytime sleepiness can occur, so that might be falling asleep during a film or during a class or feeling drowsy after lunch. Okay, now some of these things are quite normal. If we're having a particularly stressful time and we're worried about something, we're unwell, or we've moved house, or there's a new baby in the house, or even a change of seasons, these can disrupt sleep for a while, but ongoing difficulties with sleep do need to be looked at, and perhaps it's that we need to look at the daytime routine or the sleep routine that might have a more positive impact and make it easier for us to sleep. So I just want you to reflect for a minute. How do you feel after you've had a good night's sleep? What does it feel when you wake up? Or what changes do you notice in your teenager when they've slept well? So that's what we're aiming for. Okay, so there are many benefits to getting a good night's sleep. So first of all, in terms of maintaining a healthy weight, so insufficient or poor quality sleep can interfere with the hormones that are involved in appetite regulation. So you might find that you're wanting to eat more or you're just always feeling hungry. The body works to grow and repair muscles, organs and other cells when we're asleep. And also the special proteins that are involved in immunity are also released at night. And the hormones in the body are regulated too. In terms of brain function, when we sleep, information moves from our short-term memory into our long-term memory. Activity in the brain during sleep improves concentration and mood, and it also impacts on our decision-making ability and our ability for complex thinking. And this is critical because during adolescence, teenagers and young people are going through lots of challenges, lots of change, and lots of opportunity to maybe take risks and be put in a position where they need to make important decisions. So they need that sleep to be able to process all of that information and help them to make better choices. Lack of sleep makes us irritable, it causes reduced energy levels, and it can worsen symptoms of depression, but it can improve things like anxiety if you are getting good quality sleep. So what does it feel like when we haven't slept so well? What changes might you notice in the people in your house if they've not slept well? What do you notice in yourself and how do you feel? Ongoing kind of sleep problems can have, a wider impact, not just on the individual, but it may affect the relationships and the connections between the people in your house. It might make it more difficult for our youngsters to maintain their social life. They may find it more challenging to complete their everyday tasks. And as I said, it does interfere with appetite regulation, so they might find they're feeling hungrier and they're snacking more, and they're just feeling more tired during the day. So now we know about the importance of sleep and the impacts of not having enough or not having good quality sleep. We now need to think about the things that we can do to improve our sleep. So first of all, it's looking at our daytime habits. Okay, so teenagers, as I said, tend to get those later cues to sleep, and so sometimes it's a real challenge to fit in those 9 hours between the time that they get those cues to sleep and the time they need to be up to be on their route to school or college or work. So sometimes a nap can actually be helpful. Not more than 20 minutes, because more than 20 minutes can make them feel drowsy, and it can interfere with the quality of sleep at night. But a nap between 10 or 20 minutes can be restorative, and it can provide as much energy as 2 cups of strong coffee. And it just helps to offset the stress and the negative impacts of a poor night's sleep the night before. They've also been shown to help improve learning, memory and alertness, and to help us regulate our emotions. All right, but it needs to be, not too late in the day, because that can have an impact on our ability to fall asleep and can be counterproductive. Right. Keeping active is incredibly important. Spending time outside helps to regulate the internal body clock, and switching off of melatonin during the day, and therefore increasing our alertness. And also kind of exercises like a physical activity can also help us to sleep better at night. Yoga is known for its relaxation and sleep benefits, and moderate exercises like walking can also have a beneficial effect on sleep too. It might be tempting to skip sleep because of work or study or social commitments, but we really must prioritise sleep and stick to that routine as much as possible. Okay, sometimes as well we can go to bed feeling like we've got lots to do the next day. We've got deadlines, or we've got a presentation or a piece of coursework that we need to finish, or there's things that need to be done around the home, and so doing as much preparation the night before, packing the bag, preparing the mind ready for the next day, that can have a real beneficial effect on, going to bed and feeling ready, feeling organised, and therefore being more relaxed and able to drift off to sleep. If they are somebody, lots of us, when we go to sleep, that's when we get our best ideas, and when we remember all of the things that we need to do. So sometimes it can be helpful to have a notepad next to the bed so that we can note those things down, and then they're there, we've let go of them, but we can come back to them in the morning. So sleep routines then. Long lyings disrupts the body clock. Okay, so it's been thought that by sleeping in by as much as an hour can take a day to readjust the internal body clock. So sleeping in for 3 hours means that it's going to take us 3 days to get back into our routine. So we really need to calculate that bedtime based on the time that we need to be up, and we need to try and stick to that as much as possible for 7 days of the week, not just those 5 days that we're going to work or school. Okay, and the sleep cycle tends to work in patterns of around 90 minutes. So if they usually would sleep for 9 hours, and there's a commitment that means that they're going to be going to bed later, then it's really trying to aim for 7.5 hours of sleep, so that you stay in those patterns of those 90-minute sleep cycles throughout the night. We need to allow time before we go to sleep to do something that puts us in a state of relaxation, so whether that's reading, listening to some light music, doing some meditation, taking a bath, but we must stay away from the screens for an hour before we intend to go to sleep. Try to stay away from pressing the snooze button. So as I said, pulling back the curtains, letting the natural light in, and aiming to wake up as quickly as possible. Okay, and we really want to make that connection between the bedroom and the bed, and that being the place that we go to sleep. So if after 20 minutes we haven't fallen asleep, it's useful to get out of bed, do some stretching, read, or do something else calming, and then get back into bed and try to fall asleep again, because tossing and turning doesn't let us have a healthy association with the bedroom. Okay. And really, if they are having repeated troubles with sleeping, falling asleep, staying asleep, keeping a sleep diary can help to identify what it is that's keeping us awake. You can start to record some of those things that I got you to look at the beginning. So what were the daytime habits? What did they eat that day? What time did they go to sleep or go to bed? And what time did they eventually fall asleep? And then you can reflect on that and start to spot some patterns. In terms of the sleep environment, we need to have bright lights. We need to avoid bright lights, because that can interfere with the production of melatonin. So we want to try and keep screens out of the bedroom and use dim lighting. And really, the screen should stay out of the room, because then there's no temptation to check emails, check social media feeds, or check the news. And all of these things that have got the potential to generate stress that's going to interfere with that feeling of being sleepy. It needs to be quiet, so use earplugs if necessary if you live on a busy road. Good sheets, good pillow. And try to have a tidy room. Encourage them to tidy their room, because all that clutter can interfere with our ability to feel relaxed. So keep it clean, keep it neat, and then think about the things that are going to make it a nice environment. So plants, photographs, calming scents, all that help that create that nice environment. And even thinking about the colour schemes in the bedroom that will have an impact on sleep. And try not to use the bedroom as a form of punishment. So when there's issues with behaviour, sending them to their room can also be counterproductive, because they need to associate that room with a space of calm and safety and with sleep, not with this is where I get sent when I haven't done as I'm told. Okay. So daytime habits we've looked at, sleep routines, but we also need to think about what we eat and drink. So as we know, caffeine can have an impact on sleep. That's because it interferes with the production of that chemical adenosine. Eating too late, so going to bed on a full stomach, or eating particularly spicy foods, that also can have an impact on sleep. Fizzy drinks, the sugar in fizzy drinks, they'll have an impact on appetite and cause kind of big energy surges, but then that dip in energy levels can have a negative impact on sleep quality. However, there are foods such as chicken or turkey, peanuts, sunflower seeds, and pumpkin seeds that contain high levels of tryptophan, which is a protein that's involved in the production of melatonin. So they can actually help to boost our melatonin levels. Skipping breakfast also increases the likelihood of sugar cravings, and therefore we then get those energy dips as a result of the sugar wearing off. So try and stay away from sugary foods and skipping breakfast. And if they're over the age of 18 and permitted to drink alcohol, they really should try and cut down or stop, because whilst it can help us drift off, it does actually interfere with our ability to stay asleep. Okay, so why have we chosen to tell you about this now? We know that COVID-19 has had a big impact on sleep. There is a loss of routine, so we're not perhaps setting an alarm or needing to be up so early because we're working from home, we're homeschooling, and so we're sleeping in longer. We haven't got that structure to our day. We've got reduced exposure to light perhaps because we're not going outside so much. We're feeling more anxious because we're worried about loved ones or catching the virus. We may have experienced a loss, and that is causing some upset and some inability to sleep. There might be increased feelings of depression or social isolation where we're not having those connections with our friends and family. We're being disappointed by all of the changes and the restrictions on the things that we can do. Okay, we might be using more screens, as I know I am, because we're using it more for our work and for our schoolwork, and we have this stress-related fatigue, which is burnt out by, you know, processing all of this change. So it's important, isn't it, to, as much as possible, look at our sleep routine and look at what we can do for ourselves to improve the quality of our sleep. So if they are struggling with worry, there is things that we can do. So setting the worries aside. So it's been shown that actually allowing a bit of time for worry can be helpful, and say, right, I'm going to think about this and spend some time on the things that are concerning me, and then I'm going to put them to one side. So you're saying it's okay to worry about this, but just for this kind of period of time, and then we try and put it to one side. Remembering that what I said about making some notes, that can help to get rid of some of those feelings. Sometimes just talking to a helpline, somebody there at the other end can help us with processing those feelings and those thoughts, and just to let go of them. It can also provide a bit of a distraction, and sometimes people on helpline can also provide us with some ideas around useful things that we can do to relax. They may not want to talk to a helpline, maybe they want to talk to somebody at home, they want to talk to a friend, whatever it is, somebody that's going to listen to them and help them feel better about whatever it is that's troubling them. Journaling can be useful, so we can write down our different coping strategies, the things that we need to problem solve and try and find some solution. And relaxation exercises, so things like yoga and breathing exercises, meditation, they can all help us to relax. And this image just shows an example of a comfort box, so they can put things into them that are important to them, photographs of happy times, positive quotes that help to keep them motivated, some sewing or some knitting if that's what they're into, Play-Doh or fidget spinners or slime, things that they can fiddle with to keep their hands busy, relaxing playlists perhaps of music they like to listen to, baking ideas, things that they're going to help them, and they can get their box or their bag out and go through those things when they are finding things a little bit too much. And they can search for useful apps around daily journaling and mood trackers on the NHS website by searching apps. So what else is available? There are lots of websites, so there's lots of information on the NHS website around by typing sleep. Childline has lots of useful resources for helping us overcome sleep problems, and also things around anxiety or managing mood. There's the Sleep Council website and the Sleep Foundation, for example. You can also get lots of books on prescription as well. We have a crisis line called 85258, so they just text Medway to the shout text line, and again they'll get a response, and they can have a text conversation with someone if they're finding things difficult at the moment. Coof is an online counselling platform, so they have access to a counsellor if they're between ages 11 and 25. Emerge is our helpline for people aged 10 to 25, and if they have feelings of anxiety, self-harm or suicidal thoughts, again there's somebody that they can call and talk to about those feelings. The Big White Wall is an online counselling platform similar to Coof. Young Minds have lots of support and information available on their website, and you can download free resources to help you, things like wellbeing action plans, and they also have a parents helpline, so you can talk to them and get some advice. There's the Childline number there as well for you. Okay. Now, we'll be looking to produce lots more tutorials like this on different topics. So if you've got ideas on things that you'd particularly like to know about, then perhaps send us an email with your thoughts and suggestions. Equally, if you'd like to get in touch with us for more information, support and resources, please do contact us at childhealth@medway.gov.uk. Thank you for watching.